Well, there goes another 100 million. The aircraft that can't get shot down, taken out by the country that has no air defence assets left. But what we're seeing here is not just the end of one single aircraft, we're seeing the end of US fiscal and military dominance of the globe. This is a watershed moment. It's a changing of the guard, and a new financial, economic and military bloc is emerging that will shape the future of the world and change the balance of the globe. We'll talk more about that in this week's episode of Friday News. So, Donald, Iran's got no air defence capability left, eh? We're smashing them, eh? Action man Pete Hegseth. You know, I bet defence ministers around the world right now are scratching their heads and saying, we spent an awful lot of money because you said this could never happen. Lockheed Martin, boy, have we got a deal for you. But we'll talk more about the F-35 fighter in a moment, because that is a crucial event that the Iranians were actually able to target and lock on to the vaunted stealth fighter. But what I want to start off talking about is something that a lot of the analysts have missed. Not the smart ones, the good ones are all over it. A lot of analysts have missed the fact that we are seeing the emergence of a new geopolitical order and the waning days of the glory of the great American empire and its vassal states. And the world is starting to change in a way that won't be recognizable in 20 to 50 years' time. And by that, what I'm talking about are these guys. So, who, what, why are the 3 billion people that make up BRICs? BRICS is an acronym that stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. These were the inaugural 5 members of this bloc, which had its first summit in 2009, so it's a relatively new formation. Since then, they've added Indonesia, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and interestingly enough, the United Arab Emirates. So what exactly is the deal with BRICS, and why are so many countries flocking to join it? BRICS was essentially set up to counter the control of the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the United States petrodollar. It was a way for countries to free themselves from the financial constraints and the financial bullying of the US. And the United States sees BRICS as a major threat, which has a lot to do with why they actually were so willing to support that homicidal lunatic Benjamin Netanyahu and his lifelong crusade for destroying Iran, as disastrous as this has been. And the Americans only have themselves to blame for the position they've put themselves in. You see, America started to weaponize its economy. That's why it made me laugh when Donald Trump started crying poor about Iran is weaponizing the Strait of Hormuz, they're weaponizing the world's economy. Well, What do you think America has been doing for decades, Donnie? I mean, since the 60s, you've been economically strangling Cuba simply because you didn't like the fact they gave you a slap in the face. America has weaponized the economy of the world. And in doing so, they've frightened people. Countries are now hesitant to invest in America or to put money into America because the examples are there that if for some reason America suddenly doesn't like you or doesn't like the direction you're taking, they can freeze those funds. They can steal that money. They've stolen Afghanistan's reserves. They've got hold of Venezuela's reserves and its oil. They have over $300 billion of Russian financial reserves held in the Euroclear house in Belgium that they've just basically said, well, we're just going to take that money and keep it. When it doesn't belong to America, it belongs to other countries. Now, whether you like countries or whatever your feelings are towards specific countries, economic markets have to work to certain rules. They have to continue to work and to function regardless of how we feel about the ownership of the money. The Americans weaponized their financial markets and they started to use their immense financial leverage to pressure countries. As I call it, the 3 Bs of American policy. They either buy you off by military means or, selling you equipment or dealing with your markets. If that doesn't work, well, then they bully you with sanctions and economic threats. And finally, if that fails, then they bomb you. The 3 Bs of American foreign policy. So BRICS was set up to counter this and to allow countries to trade using their own currency. You see, a lot of people don't realize all oil around the globe has always been traded in American dollars. It's what backs the greenback and gives the American dollar its strategic strength. You can't buy or trade oil unless you trade it in American dollars. One of the things Saddam Hussein was going to do was start trading in euros. Another one of the many reasons why we started that illegal war against him. Muammar Gaddafi was going to actually create a new gold-backed currency for Africa. So, of course, we had to get him out of the way. They needed a bit of freedom loving too. The same thing is happening here with Iran, and America feels threatened because its financial security is dependent on the petrodollar. Now, BRICS has expanded, and as I said, when I got Indonesia, where I am at the moment, see, they were smart. They jumped on board because they can trade in their own currency. They don't have to convert everything to American dollars and be beholden to the American stock market, to American banks and investors. The expanded BRICS group now constitutes 36% of global GDP. Just think of that. A third of global GDP is now held by these countries. They have 46% of the world's population. You're talking countries like China, India. Think of the economic power that these places have. These are the powerhouses of the future. And instead of trying to deal with them and to trade with them, we keep trying to make enemies out of them. And then ironically, when the Strait of Hormuz is closed, Donald Trump asked China for help. But what's happened here, and coming back to what I said in the intro about the shooting down of the American F-35, it's symbolic of the shooting down of the American empire, because the closing of the Strait of Hormuz has shown just how vulnerable the Western nations are on America's control of the Gulf states, and how America doesn't have the military means to protect those Gulf states, that its bases there are not a form of security, they're actually a form of instability. And now we've got the ironic situation where Russia is benefiting from having massively inflated oil prices, and the longer this war goes on, the more the pressure is going to be to open up Russian markets to the world. Now see, the BRICS countries like China, they're not worried. They can get oil and natural gas from Russia. They don't have any sanctions or any issues with Russia. India put itself in a difficult position. Modi made a fool of himself by going and making all these deals with Israel and then agreeing to American sanctions on Russian oil when he's a BRICS partner. India is a BRICS partner. Then he had to go the ignominy of having to go to America and ask if India could buy oil from Russia. You see, just think of the situation that places countries in, where you have to go and ask America if you can buy fuel from an alternate source. And all Western countries are held by the balls by America. The German economy is falling apart. Germany is virtually in recession, and yet they're importing extremely expensive liquefied natural gas from America when they have a perfectly good pipeline, the Nord Stream, from Russia. I mean, the British and the Americans blew up one of them, but the other one's still in perfect condition. All you got to do is open the tap and you can get cheap Russian gas. But this ideological need to obey your American overlords is ruining your economies. And what this war in the Gulf is now showing is that America is capable of actually destroying the world's economies because of its foolish adherence to that nut Benjamin Netanyahu and his ideological crusade against Iran. Now, America didn't go and discuss these actions with any of its allies. It didn't ask them. It didn't prepare them. It just went ahead and basically did an action which we knew was going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz and which we knew was going to destroy world oil markets, amongst other things, and cause massive economic damage to the world order. And countries now must be looking at the American alliance and then looking at countries like China, how benign China is, India, Indonesia. These are countries that aren't involved in massive wars with anyone. Russia, believe it or not, is actually a very benign country. Since 2014, when the Western governments staged a coup and overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine and installed a puppet regime, the Russians have had an issue with the people on their border who, under Zelensky's rule, were actually trying to conduct ethnic cleansing in the Donbass of any ethnic Russians. So the Russians are actually fighting, in all honesty, a defensive war which has been started by NATO and the West. So all of these countries are not about invading other countries, taking land grabs, starting wars. They are about simple economic cooperation, and people are jumping on board. And BRICS will continue to expand. And Western countries, tied to the American dollar, tied to a country which now has a national debt equal to 100% of its GDP. Yes, America's national debt is 100% of its GDP. Not exactly a safe trading partner. Look what happened in the global financial crisis. American banks, stupidly overextended mortgages, started to collapse, and the whole world suffered. The irony is that shouldn't be called the global financial crisis. It should be called the American financial crisis, because America's ridiculous systems allowed us all to suffer. And it's happening again. And we're going to see countries start to disentangle themselves from the US financial system, because it is proven to be a danger and a burden. As for my own country, Australia, I'd like to think that Anthony Yes Please and his kowtowing government would actually stand on their own 2 feet for once, but no. This is what Australia is all about. Donald Trump visiting Australia. I couldn't have put the relationship any more succinctly than that. So thank you, Benny Hill. Now, I just wanted to, before we move on to the F-35, I just wanted to just run through a few stats on the BRICS countries compared to the G7, which seemed the most sensible way to have a look at this. And just a few things. I'm not going to bore you with a whole lot of stats, but as I said, the BRICS countries, 5 BRICS countries constitute 3.3 billion people. The 7 G7 countries constitute less than 1 billion, 800 million. GDP growth in the BRICS countries is estimated to be between 4 and 5%. In the G7, it's between 1 and 2%. That's telling for the future. The military expenditure. Now, this is interesting. The 5 BRICS countries spend just under $500 billion on defence. It's 0.48. the G7 spend $1.2 trillion on defence. So the G7 spends twice as much on defence as BRICS. And I think that says everything you need to know about the ideology behind the two power blocks, or the two economic blocks. And countries are starting to distance themselves from America. They must be looking at America and its behaviour, and its rash behaviour, because in attacking Iran, or allowing Israel to attack Iran, or joining Israel, it depends. There's a different reason. Every time President Trump makes a speech, there's a different reason why we had to attack Iran. The most ludicrous one being the imminent threat of nuclear weapons. Well, hang on. Last year you assured us that in the 12-day war you finished it by obliterating Iran's nuclear facilities with your bunker-busting bombs. So how come all of a sudden they're ready to build them again? And of course, Tulsi Gabbard, the head of America's National Intelligence Agency, has made it clear there was no threat. And of course, we've had Mr. Kent come out and lay it all on the table, that the war had nothing to do with Iran. They did not pose a threat to America. It was all about Israel and those Zionist lunatics under that pathological nutcase Benjamin Netanyahu and his ideological crusade against Iran and hope for the Greater Israel Project, that we started bombing Iran. The Iranians were in peace talks with us. That's the second time we've bombed them during peace talks, so I don't think they're ever going to talk to us again. And the irony is that the two people that we sent to talk to Iran, I mean, Steve Witless and old Jared Kushner. I mean, Jared Kushner, who the hell is he? No one elected him. This guy just happens to be the president's son-in-law. Old Witless, he's just a real estate developer. Both of them are ardent Zionists. And you send them to negotiate with Iran? The Iranians aren't stupid. They would have looked at these two people. Both of them have the collective IQ of a brick, by the way. They're both fucking dumb. And they would have discounted anything they said straight away, knowing that they're Zionist supporters and they wanted to see the end of Iran just as much as Netanyahu did. Anyway, I digress. The issue with the whole BRICS an American financial system is that with America weaponizing the dollar, BRICS has become a viable alternative for a lot of countries, and it will continue to do so. People have seen the damage that America can cause and will cause. And as I've said before, mark my words, if this war were to stop tomorrow, the economic fallout would go on for months around the globe. So if you think you've seen the worst of it, think again. Be prepared for $5 petrol prices at the pump. And you know what? Don't complain, don't whinge. We brought it on ourselves. Our adherence to America and its Zionist-controlled government has put us in the position we're in. So we've got no one else to blame but ourselves. And of course, you know, the gutless Australian government will go lockstep along with America, no matter what America does or says. We've gone in to protect the United Arab Emirates, a disgusting country. The Gulf states are repressive, undemocratic regimes with appalling human rights records. What the hell are we doing sending aircraft to protect these pricks? If the UAE wants to allow American bases to be used to attack its neighbour, let the UAE defend itself. I don't want my servicemen and women going over there and risking their life to protect a bunch of autocratic, rich bastards. Anyway, moving back to the shoot down of the F-35. We just bought 72 of them here in Australia. Way to go, guys. Yet another defence debacle. Now, not only did we just buy, I'm going to read you something, to buy this aircraft, we, just like with AUKUS, we in Australia, we seem to love throwing money at America to help America. Now, what they did with the F-35 is, it first flew in 2006, by the way. This is one of the reasons why it's getting tracked and shot down. It's not really new technology. If you recall, in the 90s, the Serbs shot a couple of F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighters down over the Balkans. So that the stealth myth has been overemphasized throughout the years. But as of March 2026, the Americans have built 1,310 of these aircraft, and they've kind of foisted them on all their allies. You know, they're great, they'll never get shot down, they're wonderful, till, of course, the first time they go into combat, and then they get shot down. But we in Australia bought 72 of them. But more than that, what the Americans did, or Lockheed Martin did, was they got countries to contribute to the cost of the thing. Now, the F-35 is the most expensive military program in the history of mankind. It's predicted to cost well over $2 trillion over its lifetime. What they did was they got the following countries. They got, I'm just going to read them to you, UK, Italy, Netherlands, Australia, of course, Norway, Denmark, and Canada. 7 countries. Those 7 countries contributed $4.75 billion to the cost, the development cost of this aircraft. Now have a think of that for a second. Look at the analogy. If you heard there was a new Ford Ranger coming out, seems to be the most popular car in Australia at the moment, and you went to the Ford dealer and said, yeah, I want to put a pre-order in for one of those Ford Rangers, and he said, yeah, that's no worries, here's a contract, you need to chip in some money to the development costs at the Ford factory before you buy one off the production line. Well, would you partake of that little offer? But of course, Australia did, and those other countries stupidly did. They contributed to the cost of designing and building this thing. Instead of saying to Lockheed Martin, you're an independent defence contractor, you're a company manufacturing a product, build the thing, and then we'll test it, and if it's any good, we'll buy it. But no, we had to chip in. And as of 2023, the whole project was running at 80% over budget and 10 years late. This plane is overweight, it's been asked to do too many things, it's been redesigned multiple times to take on a whole lot of different profiles, which is why it's called the Joint Strike Fighter. It's supposed to do everything. Replace the F-16, the F-18, the A-10 Warthog. I mean, this is a be-all and end-all. And of course, the old adage comes to mind, jack of all trades, master of none. The fact that the aircraft was able to be targeted and hit by Iran shows that the stealth invincibility lie is nothing more than a myth, nothing more than a glossy sales brochure by Lockheed Martin, who have made a fortune out of this aircraft, which clearly doesn't do the job it's designed to do. So, looking ahead, I think the demise of the F-35 basically works in tandem as a euphemism for the demise of the American empire, and the overwhelming technological and numerical strength that we've vaunted about and we've lied about for decades in the West is actually the curtains being unveiled. The emperor has no clothes. We're seeing that these projects are just glossy sales pitches and they can't do the job they're designed to do. The future of this conflict is not going to bode well. We've heard that the Americans, I think the 35th and the 12th Marine Expeditionary Units are heading to the Middle East. Alarmingly, the 82nd Airborne has been redeployed from an exercise to go over to the Middle East. That's concerning because they're like a spearhead of American assault ground invasion forces. Any attack on Iran will be a disaster. And if they try to take Karg Island, as I said in my last episode, which was Karg Island, the damage to fuel infrastructure will set us back decades. And already we've seen with the reckless Israeli assault on the South Pars natural gas field, Iran has retaliated. Remember that word, retaliate. They always retaliate. They never start. They've retaliated and they've damaged infrastructure around the Gulf, which is going to take months to repair. Mark my words, you are all going to be suffering the financial impact of this for months to come, if not for the rest of the year. This war is going to hit everyone in the hip pocket, and that's going to hurt us where it really counts. Anyway, this is Bintang Bernie saying, with that cheery note of a bright, happy future and $5 a litre petrol, remember, there are 2 types of people in this world. Make damn sure you avoid them both.